Ba-da-ba.
Dad
You
would
guys are
want you to
such
choose-
Welcome to The Second Wall, a binge-free zone where we look at a series and discuss it in small movements. This time we are discussing the 2017 series Your Lie in April. It can be found on most podcast and social media platforms, a full list of which can be found at beardyandthebeast.com. Please watch episodes 13 through 15 and join Drew and I in the lobby to discuss the show afterwards. So Drew,
Yes?
he played without Kaori.
And what he did was he looked deep inside, used his internal sound, projected that onto the audience, used his inner power, blow away the competition, and defeat the evil violinist in the wings.
Oh. So it sounds like you weren't quite as upset that he played without her as you thought you would be.
Oh no, I wouldn't. I didn't think I'd be that upset at him. I just like story-wise, right?
Yeah.
That being said, they did approach it in the only way that I think is acceptable.
All right.
Yeah, so like the fact that everybody else in the room was saying like, "Can he even do this?"
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I guess he did have some leeway because it was a violinist piece that was converted to being played on piano.
Yeah, so he played the piano arrangement version of what they were going to play.
Yeah. And I didn't think it would land so well.
Mhm.
I mean, it's one of these days we should probably just do a media deep dive where we kind of like approach our biases against certain tropes and actions and like, show me on the doll where the media companies hurt us. Because there were so many ways that it could have been done wrong. It could have been approached poorly. And I was worried for all of those, right?
Mhm.
Like, I was worried that it wouldn't make sense thematically or in the story. Not so much like worried about the character stuff for Kousei and Kaori, Tsubaki, or Watery. I wasn't really worried about any other character stuff because I knew that was going to land either somewhere in the mid to good.
Yeah.
Like there wouldn't be like a bad landing there. But how they would pull it off, the structure of the storytelling here is what I was worried about.
Yeah.
And again, I think this was the only way that they could have possibly succeeded by completely transitioning it into Kousei and him confronting himself and his perspective of his mother.
Yes.
So instantly they took it and removed it away from the competition setting at all.
I mean,
And it's not even like you were someone in the crowd, right?
yeah.
Like you were definitely still the viewer in this kind of omniscient place. But I think it was just as impactful.
Well, and there's several things with how they did it that I think is done very well. So one, like the only real impact Kaori had here was, well, one, just getting him on stage and having him do it. That came from her beforehand. And again, her recognizing how important that piece was, even if she didn't know the details around it. So, and he even recognized that finally. It's like, oh, you chose this for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And then I like the fact that it didn't become about Kaori not being there. It really did become about him seeing that he can actually move on.
Hmm.
So it was all about playing for his mom. I liked and no way condoning his mom, but reframing it,
Hmm.
almost giving us a little bit of unreliable narrator aspects behind it.
Hmm.
No, she definitely did hit him and draw blood because Hiroku calls her out on that too.
Yeah.
So it definitely happened. But again, it recontextualizes that into a sense of her, what she's going through, what's going to happen to her son, and it was a lash out on her side too,
Hmm.
which is again not condoning, but definitely recontextualizes what we've seen up until this point.
And I think a lot of what we've seen here, and it's like, bigger events are coming.
Mhm.
So in any other story, him getting over the thing holding him back,
Yeah.
this perception of his mother, and we'll talk about his mother and him and their relationship in a little bit here, but this would be something that you'd find at the climax of the story.
Yeah. Like we did in the Angela anime.
Exactly. But in this case, we're still well before where the climax would be in like Japanese storytelling.
Mhm.
So we know something much bigger and much more important and emotional is coming.
Yeah.
Which, given how well I'm receiving this anime, is exciting. But again, show me where on the doll the media company hurt you. I'm also very worried.
Yeah.
Thankfully, we're talking about media from a different culture, so it's less likely to fall into the same bad tropes.
Yeah.
Or fall into the same pitfalls as like Western media. So I'd like to remain hopeful there.
Yeah.
I really the progression from like during his playing, like it was the kind of the usual thing, like, oh, it's grating on my ears, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But intercut with the context and his youth and his relationship with his mom, like the positive aspects and how he got into piano. One thing that I really liked that they brought in was when he started seeing, like, using that sound within him,
Mhm.
that imagery, when he stopped playing for Kaori and realized that he needed to be playing for his mom.
Yeah.
I like how they introed that, because it was the flashback of him as a kid playing upside down in the air, and that's where the sparkles were coming from.
Yeah.
And then they kind of pulled that out, and then it was his fingers on the keys, and that's when the emotion started coming out. It was just like, it was a nice little powerful scene.
Yeah. And it added by the fact of the, like, so we get that flashback, that power, and then it's built on with Igawa's reaction again, and little puny kid who couldn't give them a few minutes to see if Kaori would show up.
Our greatest villain, our greatest shonen villain to date.
Right? So yeah, you get that impact, and then also interspersed with the lines of like, "Have you never just felt what you were playing?" Which I think Hiroko said. Built with Hiroko's emotions around everything. Like the whole scene is done well. and again, plays very much into what we were saying about Hiroko previously as well. It's like, no, she was guilt, and just straight up comes and says, like, I can't even face it. Because she sees it as her fault because she's the one who got him into piano.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
And that was a tough scene to get through. Like, I really, like, this is a top episode in anime for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the emotional highs and lows that you kind of bound through in this episode while it was laying down context and bringing in themes from other things. Just off the charts, like, so well constructed.
And everything we've talked about so far has only been the first half of the episode.
Well, exactly.
Like, talk about no scene wasted.
One thing that killed me about Seto, what was her given name?
Hiroko?
It was Hiroko?
Yeah.
Because I wrote down the entire thing. There was two different things that she had said that were really powerful, like especially contrasting what Kousei was going through the entire time. The first was the song that Saki loved, So You've Been Facing It Alone All This Time.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second, like, I wrote down the entire thing. Where is it? I'm the one who drove you into this corner. It's all because I told her to turn you into a pianist. Music only brings Kousei pain and suffering. Then I have no business being by his side.
Yeah.
Which puts in more context, which we were kind of discussing why she wasn't there for this little boy who needed somebody.
Yeah.
Because she felt directly responsible for this pain that he was feeling and couldn't face him.
Yeah. Like, oof, just the weight of it, like even just like remembering it's like giving me the, the feels.
Mm-hmm. Because we watch these in 3-episode chunks, to kind of put it into context, 14 and 15 were so overshadowed by 13.
Yeah.
It's just like there's important things here, but I just watched 13.
Yeah. It was.
Did you notice like the like almost angelic choir that came in as Kousei was playing?
Yeah.
That was really neat.
Yeah, I love those
like to
things that they do with the music. It's just so subtle and just exactly what needs to
I
be
mean,
there.
this is my headcanon, but Kousei is using the music to this I'm not leading into like a shonen thing here. I know when I go into something long-winded, I'm usually laying up a joke, but it's not the case this time.
We'll see.
Unless this is part of the joke. So Kousei was beginning to project his emotions effectively through his music, and everyone was feeling it.
Mm-hmm.
My headcanon is the choir that we were hearing was either the reflection or the response of the hearts that he was impacting.
Mm-hmm. I like that.
Yeah.
Because the other thing is like, coming down from the heavens, but then I would have almost expected a second piano to be representative.
Yeah, there would definitely be a second piano.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I do think that's the case, and I think there's again those visual things done afterwards that showed that. See it again, working the greatest shonen villain, his passion and instantly being recognized by everyone. We see it definitely reignite something else in Gala.
Well, it's so interesting, the violinist So he gets up, like obviously he's disheveled because of this powerful performance that he just watched. And now it can't possibly be graded. It's not a competition. And even if it was, there was no violinist.
Yeah.
Therefore, it would have been disqualified.
Yeah.
So it was so powerful that it caused that kind of reaction in this professional kid. But then immediately upon seeing his mom, like he began to wonder and get, shonen inspired by the main protagonist.
Yeah.
Oh, did I write it down? I want to see if I can sacrifice my body and soul like that.
Yeah.
And then immediately it was recognized by people who knew him. It's like he's playing much softer, as if his heart had been pierced by Kousei's playing.
Yeah. It's so good. And like, going from being like, even before the playing, like going from being this little douchebag kid to like actually going and checking on to like, wait, go ahead.
Now we are picking on this animated little kid here,
yeah.
But like there's no reason why he should have.
Yeah.
Like this was an honor that was bestowed upon him. Yeah. But this douchebag little kid, go on.
It's like you could see he was so impacted by it. Like he heard something in the hallway, and before going on stage, and he's supposed to be going on stage, he actually goes and checks on Kousei.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's such a small thing, and again, just recognizing what Kaori said when they were going to the gala in the first place was, sure, we might not have the top spot, but we're going to have the spotlight. And even the kids going like, I don't have the spotlight.
Well, that's the thing. I think this kid, if Sato hadn't came to give him a hug, I think this kid would have went up and tried to like at least pat him on the shoulder or something,
yeah.
Right? Because it looked like he was beginning to approach or take that first step forward, because he recognized the heart and the soul in the piece.
Yeah. And so go to that bit with Seto there now. Like, just that embrace again was so powerful. Like, I got the impression this is literally the first time since, breaking down on the stage, 3 years ago. I think this is literally the first time he's actually processed any of what happened.
No, I agree. 100%. I think he's been bottling up everything inside, especially, specifically related to his family situation.
Yeah.
His playing, his mom, anything related to that circumstance. And it's been everyone around him who have been trying to push him. Whereas, see, this is the genius of Kaori here. Like, she recognizes this, the pushing's not working.
Yeah.
So instead she pulls.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you want to get Kousei to do anything, you just commit acts of violence against him.
No, this is true.
So,
so what you're saying is his mother was right the entire time.
Oh. That's dark.
It's dark. It's a joke, but it's one of those. If I have to say there's a failing in this show, it's the mixing of the tropes, because that physical comedy the physical reaction is very common in anime.
Yeah.
And I mean, luckily we're able to look at it and see that difference. But if you want to get really critical about it, it's really jarring when you actually see, no, there actually was abuse here too.
When literally they keep making him bleed from the head, just like he did as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, my guys and girls.
Yeah. I think the only reason it works is because they always change it to that kind of chibi, simplistic art
Yeah.
style, and it's. But
The thing is, my brain doesn't separate it.
yeah,
I've seen every form of anime there is, and frankly, it just there's too many times where that chibi stuff is fully in context.
Yeah.
So how do you separate it, right?
Yeah.
No. I just want to put this out there, like if there is any listeners, if there is an abusive situation at home, seek help.
Mm-hmm.
One of the positive things here is I don't think there was any pushing or apologeticism.
Yeah.
Not even a word. Regarding the childhood abuse of Kousei.
Yeah.
Very much recognizing how terrible these acts were on the kid. However, having the context why is important, even though, like it has to be said, every form of abuse always has an excuse or reason why it's occurring.
Yes.
It is her failure as a mother for her not finding a different way to prepare her kid for her passing.
Yes.
But that being said, because like neither you nor I condone it.
No.
And I don't want anyone to ever get this twisted. Even though we're past the 15-minute mark in the podcast. It is good to know the self-reasoning that she had. And the fact that it wasn't malicious force.
Yes. I think you've said that very well. I think knowing the reasoning, and it doesn't make the actions good in any way, shape, or form. And it's important from a character piece, like back into the media, knowing that there was care behind it, even though the actions weren't, didn't necessarily show that. And without that being expressed, we wouldn't be able to see Kousei grow, Hiroko grow. I mean, even though we've only had 2 episodes with Hiroko, there was growth there as well. And you can't move on if you don't understand that. And I don't want to talk about this conversation too much more for personal reasons. But yeah, it was
powerful.
It was powerful.
And that's what I'm talking, like the ups and downs, the recontextualization of things to make them more understandable, but not forgivable. And the lessons that we learn is it's coming from your friends, it's perfectly fine. But if it's coming from a parental figure, it's completely terrible. That's a joke. Don't put up with abuse. Well, that's the thing, like, so the ripples, these waves that are coming out through this entire situation, mind you, a lot of people became stagnant because they've been involved or associated with Kousei. And they're always kind of stuck with this unmoving figure, right?
Yeah.
So the fact that they've become stagnant is, I'm going to say it's Kousei's fault, but when I say Kousei's fault, I'm talking about Kousei's situation.
Yeah.
Like his existence, not specifically him being a failure of any sort. And And that's why, like, as we go into these further episodes, we start beginning to see the other people, such as Igawa, finally seeing a rival,
Mm,
like Aiza, Aiza did.
yeah. You-
We see Tsubaki finally becoming like very confused about how she's seeing Kousei, because he's no longer immovable.
Yeah.
He's beginning to take those steps on the journey.
I think Igawa actually said it very well, and I didn't write down the line because I'm dumb that way. But um, she basically goes, it's like, no, you need to wait for me to catch up. It's like, no, wait, no, keep going. I'm just going to have to be faster.
Yeah.
Right? I'm going to catch up to you, even though you're continuing to go forward. Which perfectly encapsulates what you're saying there.
Yeah, and it was like the perfect delivery too. Like the pause and the tone, like voice actress, like definite credit here. Delivery was perfect because you could tell she instantly realized what she was saying and made that correction in real time. Like I've done it myself.
Yeah.
Like every other week I do things like that. Oh, it must be because of this. And I'm like, wait, no, it's not. I'm dumb.
Yeah.
It's this other way. So so in that moment, she realized that if Kousei stopped, it would just put him in the same position that he's already in.
Mm-hmm.
It would just be a goalpost that just moved once.
Yeah.
There's no progression there. There's no journey.
And it would have just put her in the same position.
Exactly.
Like that's what happened. Because I got the feeling that she was better, quote unquote, better than Aiza.
Mm-hmm.
And then just immediately dropped when she hit that, right? So, just the ripples.
Yeah, like, well, we're talking the top 3 pianists in this age group / area, right?
Yeah.
Probably even greater, given like how everyone talks about them.
Yeah, no, they are top tier. Yeah, and then just like the little things, like episodes 14 and 15, they're going to be harder to kind of go through. I think it's almost, there's kind of 2 arcs that are going through them, and it might be better to kind of look at each arc.
Yeah, I think so. We did miss one thing I wanted to cover from 13.
Oh, sure. Sorry.
We had talked about this briefly. I don't know if I specifically pointed it out. I know I was considering it, at least internally. So if I didn't express it, then I have no proof that I'm super smart, except for the fact that all our countless fans love me. When Kousei says the ghost of my mom was a shadow of my own creation, an excuse for me to run away from my own weakness.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we didn't talk about it exactly in those terms, but essentially saying like, this is a personal block that he's putting in his way because he doesn't want to deal with his situation.
Yeah.
Who he is and the problems in his past.
Yeah, I don't think we talked about it exactly like that, but I know we definitely talked about how his playing and such was signs of these mental blocks that came from it. And it just him not dealing with things. But no, it is important.
I think exactly in those words.
But it's very important to point out that he called that out. Because I know we've said this I'm pretty sure we've said this in, I think the last episode where we said, you can't get help unless you want help to help yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where he's at. And that's how I'm going to segue into the Tsubaki storyline.
Hey, perfect segue.
Hey.
No one will ever notice.
No one will ever notice at all. Because after his performance, he's meeting everyone. Tsubaki hesitates because she could see that he wasn't that little kid anymore. And, you know, he teases her with that. It's like, so what did you think? Like, I thought you were going to praise me. And just kind of had that little bit of hesitation. I'm going to kind of skip over like the very end of that episode when, in the very beginning of the episode 14, when Tsubaki comes to the piano room, just because I think it's a little bit better to focus on Tsubaki's arc first.
Yep.
So I would say both of these episodes were very heavily Tsubaki based, which I know is something you talked about way back when we first started watching this, how you wanted to make sure that the other characters got something and it wasn't just Kousei and Kaori.
Yeah, and I've been very pleased that the producers of this anime went back in time and completely rewrote and reanimated the entire show to keep up with my wishes.
Yes.
Thank you, production team. Thank you.
Again, I want to echo what you said. If we'd just been starting watching episode 14 instead of it being the second one in, I think probably would have had a little bit more
impactful.
Yeah, if we had that week break in between. But there's still a lot there. So Tsubaki kind of calls us out, and it's kind of something I talked about before when we had like kind of the Watery and Tsubaki episodes with them both kind of failing.
Mm-hmm.
Where I said like Watery handled it better, even though we handled it alone, in the way that that Tsubaki was kind of bottled up, didn't break down in the same way. And we kind of see that here because one of their through lines throughout this was talking about how her friends have moved. Her friends are continuing going. Her friends aren't stopping it. But she has. And interspersed with like the flashbacks of her running a baseball camp for her friends on the beach. The beach episode.
Wait, is this a harem anime? Is Tsubaki or?
And it's nice to see, like, I know there's these other characters. It's not like it's the first time we've seen that friend. I just can't remember. Not impactful enough, general. But like her calling Tsubaki out on, it's like, you know what's happening here, right? It really led to that feeling of Tsubaki settling and not realizing she was settling.
Well, it's an interesting change of things because they had described her throughout this series as being more of a driving, pushing force. So if, like, I don't have any confirmation, so I'll throw in a little headcanon here. So she's pushing that rock up the hill. She's pushing that rock up the hill. And that rock, obviously, Kousei. So, for her dear friend, she keeps that forward progression. But now, that rock is now moving forward on its own. So she's having maybe even a crisis of purpose.
Mm-hmm.
She's no longer that driving force, so where does she belong? So she's becoming stagnant.
I agree with that's how it's presented. I just think you picked a bad analogy. There's a better one.
Okay, well, give me a better analogy. I'll probably accept it.
I'm starting a car.
No,
she's pushing the car.
No, rocks are better than cars.
Okay.
Their analogy's dumb.
All right, yeah, because rocks are definitely known for getting their own driving force.
I'm just saying. Without rocks, where's the rock and roll?
I can't fight that logic.
Just roll.
I can't fight that logic. But that's the thing. There is no rock anymore because he's rolling. He's just rolling.
And Roll is the inferior Mega Man character.
That's true.
Anyways, one thing that I really liked about 14 is everyone calling, like everyone talking about Tsubaki, like especially like Watery and Kashiwagi, the friend.
Yeah.
Like having that conversation over juice boxes, and they both can plainly see that she likes Kousei. And they're having this conversation about it. And it's like, well, what do you do?
Well, and so I think this is just where it's showing difference in characters, because like Watery being, you know, and the things that he brings in is that sage advice.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think Sabaki would have necessarily felt the same way with the advice that Watery gave Kousei, like way back in like episode 2, where it's like, yeah, but sure, she might be interested in me, but doesn't change how you're feeling about this. Though I feel like that Sabaki getting that advice that directly would have just pushed her the wrong way.
Well, I mean, Kashiwagi, when talking to Tsubaki about it on the steps there, I forget exactly what she said, but she was like, kind of talking to her, it's like, you're just using this like little brother to cast a curse on yourself.
Yeah.
Essentially saying like you're trying to convince yourself that he's just a little brother to you. And then when she starts having a adverse reaction to that line of thinking, it goes into inner monologue, and Kashiwagi all of a sudden goes like, oh, that was the wrong line of attack. I'm going to have to figure out a different way to approach this.
Yeah.
Almost in those words, too. And I was like, you conniving.
Well, but it's a very interesting thing, because, like, we talked about this before. Tsubaki very much did feel that way. It was very much kind of started out as that familial best friend type love. But things shift, things change. And it's the nature of relationships. And again, she doesn't know how to recognize this. I mean, this is like over the course of like a month that these changes are happening, right? Like the whole series, like up until this point, has been what, April to June? So
wait, didn't they just finish summer?
They're in summer, so they met in April. Like they actually gave that timeline in these episodes.
Okay, so they're only like what, 3 months in, like 4 months at the end of episode 15.
If that, yeah, 3 or 4 months, yeah. So, like a lot of this is happening real time. I mean, she's literally dealing with her emotions real time. It's not like that unrequited love situation. It's literally we're literally watching the metamorphosis of these feelings. And I think they portray that very well with her confusion and her not understanding. And I think really if her boyfriend didn't break up with her, it would have never happened. They just would have been stuck like that forever. Tsubaki would very easily have just settled and not figured out how to move on.
Well, I think her boyfriend is a super good dude. From what little they've shown of him, I actually debate whether or not he actually likes somebody else.
I do too.
Or does he just recognize that she needs to work through this herself? And it could become toxic and resentful in his heart regarding the situation.
Yeah.
And B, obviously, she's got a lot of things to work through, and this is probably the best course of action for her.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, there may or may not be there. I honestly do think it's I'm letting you off the hook. I understand.
Mm,
And he even calls her and is like, what are you apologizing for? I'm the one dumping you. Right?
yeah.
Like he knows what he's doing. He's willing to be the quote unquote bad guy for
Bad guy.
her for her good, which again, super good dude.
I think we found the goodest dude. Our tuxedo came in. Wait, shit. That's still a shoujo. Darn it.
Yeah. Nice try.
Oh, I'll get you next time, Gadget.
I think I'm going to say this without going into it too much because I really want to talk about the other arc as its own. But there's a little bit of crossover that needs to mention here. So at the end where we see Kousei run off to go see Kaori. Again, we'll get into this afterwards. It's very important to note that how Tsubaki reacted to that. Like you could see that, like even though it was just a couple frames, like you could see that hurt that hit her. And I think it's very important how Kashiwaga actually finally helped Tsubaki by her calling Kousei and saying that she was in trouble.
Yeah, she found a different line of attack. It totally worked.
It totally worked.
Super effective.
It was. Because and we kind of talked about this before, Tsubaki is feeling lost. She doesn't understand her emotions. She doesn't understand what's happening. She's seeing how Kousei is reacting to Kaori. And I don't think she believes that he would react that way for her anymore. And that's exactly what happened here. And we start seeing her. This is where we actually see her starting to grow. So we go into the flashback about them walking on the beach and talking about like the size of the footprints and everything there. And it's
the kind of tropey, like, oh, his shoulders are much broader, his feet are much bigger than
yeah. And again, the show does it so well that it doesn't feel quite as tropey because we're actually watching the character grow and being more grown up. It's just a good visual for it.
So realistically, it's really tropey. Just it's written well, so
yes,
you don't have that groan factor.
Again, PSA, tropes are not bad, it's how you use them.
Exactly. So I imagine the high school confession part, you probably want to say for the next line. There's one thing that I want to say, like when she runs off crying, it's important to realize that she then refers to Kousei as a kid who's not just a little brother.
Yeah.
Specifically, and the fact that she was lifting that curse upon herself and realizing being able to put a face to the emotions, I guess.
Well, in a way, it's mirroring the piano piece in the previous episode, in episode 13, just for her. She's seeing her blocks and now having to deal with them, and now having to deal with the fact that it might be too late. And her friends were trying to tell her that beforehand, but she wasn't ready to listen. No, I think that there's a few things that happen really well with this, both when she's telling Kousei what happened and and with the flashbacks. Right? So Kousei still sees their relationship as the same. Again, I think there's love there. I don't think he's got the same feelings that she does from what we see. But he's very much there for her. So just sitting there on the bench playing the piano while she's breaking down, he just calmly says, "This is what I do, right? This is how I help, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I'm just treating it like I always did. We're gonna have some music. We're gonna just lean up against." And I think the line of I don't care if you're here or not, and his response both as a kid and older, it's like, well, if you don't mind, I'll stay then.
Yeah.
Right? It's such a small thing, but again, just it's executed so well.
Such a mean thing to say. But yeah.
Right? And she's hurting for two different reasons. And then, like, the first one is because, she tried to make him a gift and it broke, and she was upset and didn't know how to deal with that. And then now it's because, like, again, and I don't want to say unrequited love, that unconfessed love.
Yeah.
He doesn't know. How's he going to react to that? Right?
Well, one thing that was super interesting to me was like the line of conversation that Tsubaki was having with Kashiwagi over the phone, where it was obvious that Tsubaki didn't know what to do or what was going on, and Kashiwagi goes, "This is a problem that you can only solve with your heart,"
Mhm.
which is completely untrue. The only problems that you can solve with your heart are children's card games. And the heart of the cards!
That was a joke he was setting up like 20 minutes ago.
This has been the end of the Your Lie in April. This was a setup for the Heart of the Cards joke this entire series.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so this is something else I see with Tsubaki, and it's in my mind it's kind of a little, it's trying to wrap around it exactly. Because she's stuck in time, it's almost like she wants Kousei to be stuck as well. I know that's not exactly right, but
my perception is she's yearning for what she found comfortable, which was her supporting Kousei, who was previously stuck in time. So she doesn't want anything about that to change. So much like Kousei's piano playing in the self-blocks that he's put there, she is trying to set up the same kind of blocks, but when it comes to her moving forward in her own life.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely part of that. So the scene that specifically I'm referencing, which is what put this thought in my mind here again, was when Kousei is finally telling his teacher what his plans are.
Mm-hmm.
And she's sitting there listening, and how happy she seemed when he said, "It's very likely that I'm not going to get in, though." Like,
well, she doesn't want to lose her best friend, her childhood friend, who she's been supporting and who has in some ways supported her this entire time.
Yeah.
And it, like, we see this a lot, and it's been growing throughout the entire series, especially as Kaori has been sliding in more and more, becoming more and more important to Kousei. It's not that she's jealous of Kaori. It's that she's beginning to feel purposeless or lost because her role is diminishing in Kousei's life. Because that's part of her identity.
Yeah. I did read it a little bit as jealousy around it. But again, I say this in, knowing very well that this is complicated and they are not making it easier on us or the characters with it. They're keeping it complicated. Because it's
I don't think it's jealousy, because, like, if we bring this to real life, obviously I'm Kousei, and obviously you're Watery. So,
I am pretty good at giving you sage advice.
I'm mecking down with the girls. Weird arm gestures. But no, I could see a little bit of jealousy there because, yeah, and I guess in hindsight, Kaori was taking up some of the space that was once filled by Tsubaki. Sure. So I could admit to there being a bit of jealousy there.
Yeah, a bit of jealousy, and again, anger. Definitely anger. Like, this is the first time she just straight up says, like, no, I hate music. It has always taken him away from me.
Well, that's such a powerful growth moment there for Tsubaki.
Mm-hmm.
And throughout this episode, like, you didn't realize that they were building up that line of feeling from, like, very early on in the series.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, music is taking Kousei far away from me. And, like, every time she wanted to play with him as a kid, couldn't come out and play.
Yeah.
Made a special gift for him. He couldn't see it because he was doing music. When he could finally see it, the present was ruined. His failure, not his failure, but his inability to play music, creating a depressive spiral, mostly resulting from his experience with his mother and his mother passing, completely changed the type of person that Kousei is. It could be easily seen to that having to do with something being related to Kousei.
Yeah.
Then we go Kaori, who's supplanting Tsubaki in part. Her position, and of course she's a musician, and then to finally, not finally yet, Kousei actually beginning to find himself and move forward using the power of his piano no jutsu.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, the last one, finding direction and wanting to follow through with music, which could possibly physically take him away, not just emotionally.
Yeah. I think the only part of that which is, I think, could have more discussion is the relationship with Kaori. Because it's such a different... She's taking him away, but also bringing him back to her. And that relationship, again, just becomes super complicated.
No, it's super weird, and that's why I'm like super... It's super difficult for me to bring that line into it, and the reason why I was hesitant at first anyways is because of exactly what you're saying, because Kousei is becoming the person that he would have been.
Yeah.
Had he confronted all this when he should have, Um, so it's almost like Tsubaki is meeting somebody new that she's never met before.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah, because I definitely don't think she feels like Kaori is. I think she feels Kaori's having the same thing, or is helping bring Kousei up. She just wasn't ready for Kousei to actually be better.
I'm just saying, Kaori didn't start falling down that we know of until she started trying to mess with Kousei. So, I mean, this could be an ABC straight to TV movie of the week situation here from the 90s, right?
Obviously.
Started as the babysitter, and she wants to replace the wife. I swear that movie was released like 600 times as a kid. Like, it was always the same thing over and over and over again.
Yes, it's called Hallmark.
Were those Hallmark
Oh,
movies?
probably.
So the second of the two storylines.
Yes.
So you'll have to lay this one out for me, because I have them blended together.
Okay.
So I need to know. Actually, give me 2 seconds. Yeah, you'll have to draw out the context here, because I kind of have them blended together. I want to see what you see as the line so I can discuss it.
So I think, now that I'm thinking about it, there's probably 3 kind of storylines total. One is more setup for what is to come, but I think the other line is what happened with Kaori, and how as the major one. I think there's a little bit with this, girl who, the little girl as well, that was kind of the end of the episode. I think is more lead up to later episodes. So with
Wait a minute. Is that Aiza's little sister?
I cannot remember her last name, but
I have to go back. That's because she had a little transmitter in her hand. So she wants to spy.
So I'm going to say, pay attention to her last name when you go back and look.
Okay.
So, she is definitely someone's little sister.
Sorry.
Really, the big thing with the plot point on that one there right now is it's important that she went to Hiroko for piano lessons, and Hiroko is now starting to push Kousei by saying, it's like, you teacher. I don't think there's too much else to go on that at the moment.
Well, yeah, that's the beginning of a new thread.
Yeah. But I think even though it didn't take up much of these episodes, what happened with Kaori, of course, is huge, right? And starting right from the end of, I guess technically starting from the end of 12, we see why she didn't make it. I'm sure you were,
because she's being poisoned by Tsubaki.
Yes.
Out of jealousy.
Yes. I am sure that you were not surprised by that in any way, shape, or form. The poisoning came out of nowhere. But I'm trying to figure out if I want to lead this or if I just want to ask, what are your thoughts on how this ended up
Yeah,
acting?
just ask
Yeah,
me.
I'm gonna go that way. I'm gonna ask you. Let's let you have some of this. I don't want to lead too much.
What is your question, sir?
So, I guess, how did you find Kousei's reactions to what was happening here? So I guess we can start from how quickly he was running out of the hospital. I don't know. There's a bunch of interactions that he kind of hadn't almost had with her.
They all make sense. So, like, keep in mind, we mentioned this already, that this is happening over a very short time frame. So, and part of that was Kousei beginning to fall for Kaori in some manner. It could be any number of things, including love. It could be something more akin to like the vampire love from Interview that we've discussed, something that transcends romance, etc. Or it could be something less than. It's definitely not familial.
Mm-hmm.
So he's fallen that way. He's also a loyal friend. He's also has been trying to talk himself out of liking this girl. And he doesn't know where his place is with her. He even said it herself, like, I'd contact her, but I don't have her email or her number.
Yeah.
Keeping in mind that he could just ask for those. Like, this is the person that he's accompanying.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be weird for him to ask for that from, like, Tsubaki, who obviously has it.
Yeah.
He... Unfortunately, compared to the illustration of Tsubaki's inner conflict, this was not done as well.
Okay.
Like, they expressed that he has it, but it wasn't as impactful. Which, mind you, I'm not going to use as a fault, more of just a statement of observation, because obviously episode 13 was very impactful.
Yeah.
You can't just have big steps every time you see one character, otherwise the entire show would feel imbalanced, right?
Right.
One thing, like, had me figuratively throwing popcorn at the screen. Obviously, I didn't have popcorn because popcorn is the devil. But what was it? He didn't go in with the baked goods, and he was trying to come up with any reason that he could, and then he came up with, like, why would, like, she's had these a million times, like, why would she even want these from, like, her parents' bakery, no less? It's like, not even realizing, of course, that would be the perfect thing for an alien girl to feel comforted with, right?
Yeah.
It was actually a perfect gift.
All right, so I'll start with the baked good one there. Like, he's obviously struggling with this because I don't think he knows. Like, we don't have any indication of her towards him, right? Other than the respect as a pianist, we know that for sure, and she wants to push that, right? So,
well, I think we do, but we'll have to leave that out for now, because I think they've definitely laid up a bunch of stuff that, in hindsight, will be like, I get it now. But I've been observing a few things that I can't eloquently put together.
All right.
But I think they've been showcasing her. and how she feels about Kousei a bit already.
I do think they have too, and I'm glad you finally mentioned it once.
Well, they've been doing it for a while.
Right, but you never talked about it.
It wasn't important before.
So I think, and I mean, regardless of them, yes, having that set up, the question is, does he see that?
No.
Exactly. So from his standpoint, he is friend A, right? Doesn't even get a name. He's just friend A. Doesn't have the contact information. She's just that girl.
Well, I mean, his failing is not even taking a step in that direction.
Well, I mean,
you can't expect her to make every move, right?
Oh, for sure. Like, there's definitely other things around this, but you know, just so everyone knows, guys are really dumb when it comes to knowing if girls like liking you or something.
Oh, bro, check it out. So when I was working for eBay, right?
Oh, we're going dark past.
Back in my emo days, I print something off and I go to the printer and this girl comes up to me and I hadn't actually talked to her before. Very cute girl. Of course, I was a little bit nervous and we start talking with each other. She's like, "Oh yeah, so what are you doing on the weekend?" I'm like, "I don't know, I might go like see a movie or something." She's like, "Oh, I love movies. What are you gonna go see?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm gonna go see this movie. I can't remember what movie it was." And she goes, I apologize in advance for what I did here. She goes, "Oh yeah, I really wanna see that movie." And I go, "Well, you should watch it then." And then I left.
So, case in point, guys are really stupid and do not get these signals. You think you're coming on heavy with your signals? You are not. So, that PSA is out of the way. Kousei obviously did want to visit, but there's layers against that. One, hospitals. I do think he picked the right gift, and even though he was like psyching himself out of it, I think he knew that it was the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not why. But he turned away because Watery was there. So,
well, he was looking for an excuse to run, right? So that they showcased that like a bunch of times throughout this entire thing, reasons for him to not make that approach. So that's how he ended up with the little girl that he had for takeout. I don't mean that in a perverted way. I mean it in the same way. Wait, I'm pretty sure Sato meant that in a perverted way. Darn it. Anyways, so yeah, it's like, oh, a black cat. Oh, like that's bad luck. I shouldn't go. Oh, a single crow. That's bad luck. I shouldn't go. Right.
So I think. Okay, so I think we need to step back in time a little bit here. Because what happened when he went to the hospital the first time? I think this is very important context. I think he's avoiding the situation, but not because it's Kaori and he doesn't know what to do.
Well, I think, yeah, so what I was thinking of during this scene, and unfortunately they kind of just like straight up illustrated it when the door opened and he saw his mom.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, you should have been a little bit more covert with this. It's a little on the nose here. So obviously he feels about his mom and her sickness in a different way than he feels about Kaori and her sickness. But there's some key factors such as not wanting to be left alone, not being able to say goodbye, wanting to know that she'll be there when he comes next time. so forth. So and this doesn't necessarily have anything to do with Kaori.
Mm.
It just so happens that, I don't know, maybe Tsubaki was poisoning Kousei's mom. This isn't a shonen at all. This is a thriller. Oh, I distracted myself. I think I made my point well enough, though.
Yeah. So while I agree it's a little on the nose, I feel like it almost had to be, simply because we finally got some resolution to that just in the previous episode. So it's that the way I see it is, they purposely did that jarring to go. It's like, oh, he seems so much more at peace, but is he? I feel that is pretty sure that's why they did so overtly. We did see that his father does in fact exist, even though it's just in flashbacks. So, and there's that specific line that you mentioned as well. It's like, "Are you going to be here when I come back?"
Mm-hmm.
And he's the only one who has this concern. And,
well, I think instinctively he knows something is definitely more wrong than what's being let on.
Mhm.
Like everyone, I mean, they might not be buying into everything, but as far as what was expressed and what we were shown, they think that she's just in for more tests.
Yeah.
Or the reason why she missed the gala was because, her parents insisted that she get these tests or something like that,
Yeah.
right? Whereas Kousei sees right through it, and it makes sense why he would. Like, he saw his mom deteriorate from, active mom to a withered husk of a person.
Mm-hmm.
He knows what that looks like, and he can see through those lies.
And I think going to the core of it, that's the real thing that's blocking him. He knows, and I don't think he knows how. I want to say to deal with it, but that's not exactly what I mean. He doesn't know how to approach it. Yeah. And I mean, from multiple angles. So yeah, finding that excuse to not go. And I think it's important to note that he did get to the door. He was going to go in, but heard a watery there. And I think what I'm assuming is subconsciously he knows that he needs to just be there with her. Like, it needs to be kind of a one-on-one thing. Because he wouldn't be able to try to express anything otherwise.
I think so.
So
I think you're right.
I mean, there's so many reasons that he knows things are wrong. I mean, even the fact that it's like only the second time she's used his name. Like, he knows. And
well, I mean, that might not even be an indicator of something being wrong. That might be her letting down her mask of.
Well, it's all tied. You're right. It is her letting down the mask, because I think she realizes that he sees it as well.
Mm-hmm.
Which leads to that lowering the mask. And
well, I think like part of that could lead into some of the stuff we're seeing about her, like showing her emotion and becoming connected to Kousei.
Mm-hmm.
So teasing him with the friend A, where she shouldn't even have known about that anyways. That was just something she overheard that he was called to double date or whatever,
Yeah.
right? She's just been using that to playfully tease him, but it's kind of like, I guess the reverse of it would be if you're hanging out with an ex-partner and you accidentally call them, the pet name you had for them.
Yeah.
In this case, you have a positive thing where you have a joke or a pet name and you accidentally call them by the correct name.
Yeah.
It creates that emotional bond, right?
Yeah. It's all indications of there being more going on in different ways, I think.
Mm-hmm. I think specifically the friend thing actually is a through line on like maybe even 3 or 4 different threads in this series.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I think, yeah. We did call that he's like, will you even be here next time? I think that is, again, just showing that fear in the back. Like, because how do you think that kind of emotion that they're showing? I know you said it feels a bit force-handed. How do you think this is actually going to affect Kousei? Like, even if it, like, with what he knows right now and what his thoughts are around it.
This show has a way of surprising me with the writing. It's actually rather hard to predict. Like, in the other second walls we've done, the other watch parties, with greater than 50% accuracy, I've been able to predict almost everything that would occur, right? From each of the second walls. I guess Firefly doesn't count because I had already seen that. So I guess I had 100% prediction rate on that.
I don't know. We did fail at our prediction at Simon being a terrible character.
Or Vosh being a good character.
Yeah.
So what I could see is Kousei allowing this dark specter of this ailment to prevent him from asking important questions or approaching Kaori in a proper way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it might come out in a more catastrophic way. Maybe cause a fight or something. I mean, that might be a little bit tropey compared to, like, in a negative way, opposed to our so far positive tropeness that we've kind of encountered with this series. But this isn't a hard prediction at all.
Yeah.
Because I think, I wouldn't say masterful. I would say adept. And well-formed and well-plotted when it comes to the writing of this story and the characters. And unfortunately, because the characters are more than just a demographic or a, this one's the funny one, this one's the strong one, like these character tropes that we usually deal with, because these characters are actually complex and strong characters, it makes it very hard to kind of predict where things might go, because the writing is so well done, they might just react unpredictably like real people.
Yeah.
So it makes me optimistic. And it definitely nice that, we're probably not going to find out it was Kashiwagi the whole time dressed up as Tsubaki, ice picking people in the eyes.
I had something I was going to say to respond. Now I've lost it. Thanks for that.
You could say that was a perfect Blue reference.
Yes.
Great movie, by the way.
Really is. Can't wait till we go and watch Paprika.
There is one last thing that I want to cover.
I remembered what I was going to say quickly.
Is it regarding Kaori or is it regarding Kousei?
It was regarding your answer. So I remember what I was going to say. So I think regardless of how whatever happens with his reaction around this, a big difference that he didn't have before is he actually has developed the relationships for supporting him. We have Hiroko back. We have they've grown. So that's what I remembered to say before some spirits dancing away. All right, go ahead.
Okay, so last thing that I kind of want to mention is I am extremely happy while being a bit sad. A bit sad about this fact because we haven't had like our big Kaori exploration episode. But I'm extremely happy because they're making her illness real to us. In that final scene, we finally get to see, like, we already knew the impact, right? But now we actually get to see the emotional toll of the sickness. Like her on the ground, like punching her legs, like feeling helpless. And the emotion that was washing over her face. It was just so powerful, and you don't get to see both sides of illness like that, and especially in an animated film or animated series.
Yeah. Yeah, that is exactly where I wanted to go as well in this. It's we always knew what it was serious. We had that, the first time she was in the hospital where it was very clear it wasn't the first time that this happened. She told people. I think of which one was that? Mandy Moore one. I want to say The Notebook, but no, that's not right. It was Walk to Remember. Where surprise, she's sick, and just, I mean, you can't do anything the same way in a 2-hour film as you can with a series. But you don't really necessarily get to explore it from their side, because we tend to see characters like this in media when they're already have accepted it. I mean, even the bucket list would be just an example. Like, yeah, he knows he's dying, so now he's going to go and he's got his list that he's going to go and do things, right? So yeah, you don't always get this type of impact, and it's like her legs giving way, and just like that sheer panic that was expressed in her face, and the emotions coming out. And
what's the thing to expand upon that? It was panic, it was resentfulness at her situation. Like, there was layers to it. And like, I'll fully accept if someone calls me out for like projection on this one, but I don't care.
Oh, I mean, it is. To say what we will about episode 14, 15, like they obviously weren't as powerful as episode 13, except for this scene. Like it just immediately hit the heartstrings, and that's like, in a very different way, but just as impactful in my mind.
Well, I mean, like it's tough because it's not in a vacuum, right?
Yeah,
We're watching them directly comparatively.
yeah.
So I agree that that scene definitely stands on impact with some of the highs and some of the lows of 13.
Mhm. Yeah, it is. And I think I like the fact. So I like the fact that Kousei hadn't seen her in between, that first hospital visit and this happening.
Mm-hmm.
Because from a narrative standpoint, all of a sudden in my mind, I'm going, it's like it's hard to go. It's like, oh, those fears and that reason why you've been avoiding this place. Yeah, you might have been right.
You know what's super interesting too? Not only like the dark hallway, that's
Yeah.
obvious, but you notice like the super washed out colors during the walk.
Yep.
It's like, something bad about to happen here.
Yep.
And like, weren't there lights on and where are the nurses?
I mean, it's obviously late at night, but yeah, I think it's that. I think it works. It shows how isolated she's feeling, and we really haven't had much direct reason to think she's feeling isolated in any way.
Well, it's because she comes off like an extrovert, but people like you and me could obviously pick up the signs where she's an introvert who's just good at hiding.
Yeah. So yeah, it's that subtle way to show that isolation. We didn't really talk about color as much in this podcast as we have in others, but it was definitely there throughout still. I just think there's a lot more of the emotional impacts to talk about. But yeah, seeing Kaori without that color is definitely impactful.
Well, especially.
Yeah, especially considering we know what it means.
Makes you wonder who Tsubaki's gonna get to next. Kashiwagi better watch out.
So I don't think I really have anything else. Do you have any questions for me that I can't answer again?
No.
All right. Yeah.
All right. Great episodes. Again, I'm super hopeful for this series. If this series keeps going in this direction, keeping in mind, I don't watch that much anime these days, but I did watch Trigun Stampede, which was amazing. I think if this continues in this direction, this is probably going to be my top anime of the last 5 years. Like, this is on par already with Carol on Tuesday, the only real season for me so far.
Yeah.
It's not even completed. So, if they mess it up, it'd suck. If they keep going, well, who would have expected? Who would have known that Drew was into thriller anime?
It's like Death Note, the thriller shonen.
Dean.